Okay, Becky, do you remember back in like 2021 when we could list a house and there were obvious maintenance things that needed to be done? No inspections, no photos, get 7 offers by Friday night.
I will never forget that.
It was quite the whirlwind market.
Yeah, well, that is not happening anymore now in 2026. And that wasn't even 2021. That was like half of 2020, all of 2021 into 2022. Yeah. But that is absolutely over and dead now. Today, we're breaking down the 5 ridiculous things and requests that sellers could make back then that would absolutely tank your home sale today.
Hey there, I'm Sam Coe, your exclusive listing specialist here at Dream Team Realty Group.
And I'm Becky Durant, your buyer specialist here at Dream Team Realty Group, right here in Wake County, Triangle area. And Sam and I have been helping guide families home for the past 11 years. If you're thinking about moving to the area or moving in and around the area, give us a call. Our information is on the screen below. Okay, so Sam, let's talk about things that sellers used to be able to do that they can no longer do right now.
Yeah, COVID era real estate was the Wild West.
Yes.
For buyers and sellers.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, there were no rules for sellers.
Right. So, okay, COVID was one thing. What was the COVID era in real estate in North Carolina here?
Like the timeline?
Yeah.
I would say mid 2020.
Yep.
Probably through most of 2022.
Yeah.
It was a solid 2 years.
I would agree. So, you know, the pandemic was March of 2020, right? When it was officially announced. So starting probably pretty immediately after, things
floodgates opened.
Shifted tremendously everywhere, but especially here in North Carolina. So why was it so drastically different here or in metros like, you know, the Raleigh-Durham areas versus maybe somewhere else?
Well, I think areas all over the country experienced some part of this COVID era craziness in real estate. I think it was, amplified here. I mean, we're already a big hub for tech and for medicine.
Yeah.
And, big companies move here and bring employees from all over the country. So we're already kind of in the mix of that. And then I think with COVID happening and work from home situation.
Yeah, the remote work was definitely a big piece of that because a lot of people from other areas like California, we had a ton of people moving from California, right? The Northeast, places in the West, Midwest, a lot of areas that were much more costly for real estate. Well, we've got everything here.
People were no longer tied to that location.
They weren't tied there, so you could move across the country and still keep your job and still be making a great salary and paying less and have 4 seasons and have, all the amenities.
The beach, the mountains. I mean, North Carolina has always been idealized as a prime place to live.
Yeah, so everyone came.
Yeah, that's true.
This migration of all these people. So our inventory just tanked for the amount of buyers that were coming here, right?
Yeah.
Which then drove prices just completely out of control.
Yeah. And then people that already lived here and owned homes wanted to move because now they're either working from home or they're at home with their family. There was a time when we were all, quarantined to our houses.
Yeah. So things that didn't matter now mattered, like having a pool or a bigger yard,
needing
or
more space. Yeah. And I think too, that coupled with, the shockingly low interest rates making affordability really there on a monthly basis for people. They were like, all right, here's our sign. We've been thinking we need more space. Now we're stuck at home with our family. We definitely need more space. And we can afford to move.
Yeah.
So it was like this perfect storm.
Yes. Okay. So all of those things created these 5 things, right?
Yeah,
buyers could,
the things that sellers could do without any consequence or regulation, really. Sellers had all the leverage in that time period.
The first thing that was absolutely ridiculous to think about now that sellers could get away with then during COVID that they could no longer get away with is literally doing nothing to their home.
The comps did matter. If your neighbor's home closed, a week ago or whatever, we would use that price and price, and I would give them a range, and then we price our listing at the highest possible end of the range, and then we would still get offers, $20K over that.
Yeah.
So appraisers were truly scrambling with prices because every closed comp listing was jumping by 20, 50K.
Yeah. What happens if you do nothing to your house now in 2026? Nothing.
Nothing happens. You don't have showings. I don't have phone calls with interest. We don't have offers.
Yeah.
Buyers are no longer offering, a price they feel is fair if it's significantly lower than the list price. I mean, it's just not happening. It's crickets.
Yeah. The second one, and this really became an issue, especially for me working with buyers. It became like an internal moral struggle for me. The due diligence. Asking or expecting absolutely astronomical high non-refundable due diligence fees from the buyers. So we're already talking about the sellers doing nothing to their house, and they're already putting a premium on the price, like a premium on the price. And now they're asking for a higher due diligence amount.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily asking for it, but that became the expectation.
And buyers were giving it. If you were lucky enough as a buyer's agent to get a counter or a response from the listing agent with, hey, my seller wants more due diligence money, well, you and your buyer were just scrambling to get it done because you had no chance to win the contract otherwise.
Right. Yeah. So when we're talking, high due diligence, before COVID, a typical due diligence amount that the buyer would offer to the seller for them to take the house off the market and allow us to do, all of our inspections and due diligence, appraisal, all that, was probably, depending on the price point in the area, somewhere between $500 and maybe $3,000. And it was actually more of a percentage of the price, like the earnest money was, versus when COVID hit, it was for my buyers, it really truly became a minimum of $20,000.
Yeah, it was their life savings. These are first time home buyers that are putting their life savings on the line and
non-refundable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're locked in.
And up to, it wasn't uncommon for $50,000, $100,000, $150,000. This is non-refundable. A lot of times we couldn't even get into the house.
Yeah, it locked the buyers in, and for sellers that was great because there was zero risk. The buyer can't afford to walk away from that much money. They're going to have to eat it and buy the house, even if they have buyer's remorse, even if a crazy, thing came up on inspections. And we saw a huge rise in lawsuits around the due diligence money because it was so much money at stake, and because sellers were being so unreasonable and not doing the right thing, which they really didn't. What is the right thing when the contract reads the way it does, right? So it became a moral issue sometimes. It was very frustrating.
Yeah, it was hard, especially when you're talking first-time home buyers who it truly is their life savings. They're doing, they've done all the right things. They've saved up the amount of money that they need to buy this house. And then all of a sudden you get hit with this, okay, well, we need all of the money you're putting in your down payment up front that goes in the seller's pocket and gives you zero leverage moving forward.
Yeah, it was wild.
And that was the expectation.
Yeah. And we're not seeing that. Now I'm generally having to, even if we get a good or a decent offer on a listing, I'm, countering back with a little bit higher ask on the due diligence money, just so my sellers have a little more, skin in the game than the buyers, because, buyers out of the gate are offering pretty low due diligence amounts, which they have the right to do, and they have the ability to do it now in this market. So,
yeah. That was wild. That was also very specific to North Carolina because we're one of 2 states that even has the due diligence fee. Mm-hmm. So that was crazy. Yeah. Something else, and this is where I would kind of lean away from new construction, where previously, truly up until March of 2020, new construction was a great option because there were incentives and it was a good way to get in. There was a lot being offered to the buyers. Well, that completely ended in 2020 through really up until maybe last year.
Yeah, builders started acting like our resale sellers and not giving incentives and
Well, no incentives.
not even offering agents commission in some cases.
True. No agent commission. And there would truly be like an unknown number for the in sales price, because builder expenses, like all of the materials to be able, well, one, for them to even get it. Two, there was like a huge increase for all of their costs, because everything cost, lumber started costing more, all of the stuff that went into the house, all the trades, everything was just higher and higher. So you would get into a new construction, like a truly new construction that you're building from the ground up. So you could get in, you could bid on the lot as a buyer. You'd be paying tens of thousands of dollars on these lots.
You're competing on new construction
just for
like
a lot.
you for resale.
Yeah, and then you wouldn't even have a final sales price until halfway or towards the end. I mean, that they can never get away with that now. Nobody would go into a new construction and say, "Here's a blank check."
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't even.
It was wild.
These aren't custom homes. These were production builders doing this. So crazy. That was I truly did not have a lot of people building at that time.
Yeah, that was wild. The fourth thing we have is putting your home is coming soon on the market, and like pre-marketing and knowing that it will sell sight unseen. So with our MLS, the way it's set up, if your home is in a coming soon or a pre-marketing type status, we're not allowed to let anybody in for showings. It's, it's publicly marketed, but it's not available for physical in-person showings. And at that time in COVID, our coming soon houses did not accrue days on market when you put it coming soon. And that changed after that to allow days on market to accrue. So it didn't become as beneficial to sellers. And I mean, now sellers can't sell their house sight unseen.
No.
Like, that's just that's not going to fly.
No, we would never.
Yeah.
I mean, and look, Sam and I have been doing this for 11 years. So this was like kind of in between, right? Like 2020, we'd been doing it for a few years. We already had experience. We already had, hundreds of home closings, and like every day was a new day for us. It was so wild. So yeah, coming soon, absolutely crazy. Nobody would buy, nobody in this area, in this market right now, would buy a home without
I can get buyers to buy listings that have seen the house 3 times. Right.
They're
certainly not offering above asking, crazy due diligence without seeing the house. It was a precedent that had been set. And, this is people's biggest financial investment. And when you can cash out on something that easily and with that much of a windfall, it just changed the landscape of our real estate market.
Yeah. People were literally offering anything they could think of, because there's only so many terms on the offer to purchase that matter.
Right.
And, it's price, due diligence, those were the 2 big things. And then it was waiving everything. Yeah. Waiving inspections.
No appraisal, appraisal addendum. If there's a gap in appraisal, we'll pay it. Yeah, it was incredible. And then, to top that off, our 5th thing we have on here is, even when the seller has just an absolute, just everything they could want in an offer, now where are they going to go? Because their house just sold in 5 minutes. So we had extended seller possession after closing, which means the buyer buys the house, they now own it, they're paying for it, and the seller gets to stay there for, sometimes we were doing a month or 2, right?
Sometimes a month or 2. And on that disclosure in North Carolina, there is like a per day, you could fill in like an amount per day. Well, guess what sellers were paying to stay? $0. So they're selling their house so that they can, be under contract and then potentially be competitive as a buyer and buy a new house. But they would have an extra month or 2 to stay in there.
No rent, no mortgage.
That would never happen today.
In today's market, we don't see it very often.
No.
Because there's a lot of liability, a lot of risk, insurance, that kind of thing. You're basically becoming a renter, and the new buyer is now a landlord.
Yeah, making $0.
But in today's market, we're seeing, fees for this rent back situation being equal to fair market rent.
Right.
And it's expensive. We're talking several $1,000s a month.
Right.
That buyers who now own the property are charging the previous seller to stay there.
Yeah. So buyers are buying the houses that they haven't seen for well over asking price, which is already a premium, paying a huge non-refundable deposit. So even if they walk away, the seller gets to keep it and move on to one of their backup buyers, which we had multiple backup offers.
Waiving considering appraisal value.
Waiving everything.
Waiving inspections.
And then letting you stay. So then the buyer is closing on this house in cash, most likely, and then letting the seller stay there for weeks, if not months.
Yeah.
Like in 2026, that doesn't even sound real.
I know. And I mean, you know, everything in life, hindsight's 2020, right? And when you're in this market, you have to play by that market's rules. And we did. We had to, right? To make win-wins, or it was rarely a win-win. It was a win for sellers, and buyers felt like
it was a win if you got the contract.
Buyers felt like they were winning, but you know, they were paying a lot of money for their homes. And you know, in some cases they got in early enough where they've still experienced, you know, pretty good appreciation. It just depends on the timeline. But y'all, 2026, we are not in that market anymore.
No, buyers are fighting back now. And actually, I think there's so much like PTSD from then, even if they didn't personally experience it. Like
they're like angry about it now.
They knew about it and they're angry about it now.
They're taking it out on the sellers now. I believe that. It feels that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not happening anymore.
Not to be all doom and gloom here, the market is very much normalizing now. That, to me, was a very unhealthy market for everyone, and it was very high stress for us. I did not, even being on the listing side in that market, you know, all I was thinking about was liability and lawsuits and all the money on the line that someone was going to get mad about. I mean, it was not a walk in the park just because you're on the listing side. So I think now we're in a normal balancing market, and we're all trying to curve our expectations on what today's normal looks like.
Just remember, it could always be worse.
Could definitely be worse. Yeah.
That was terrible. And actually, I remember thinking over and over again when I would hear this from listing agents, like the sellers are very overwhelmed or the sellers are having a hard time deciding. And I was like, oh, well, pity on you, sellers who can't decide between these 15 offers.
It was very stressful.
But I do know
as well.
It was. And luckily, we're out of that because that was very unhealthy for everybody.
But look, no matter what market we're in, we're always going to tell you straight, tell it like it is, you know, give you the down and dirty, the good and the bad of what's going on currently. We like to stay very in tune with that stuff. So if this is interesting to you, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. We try to put out really engaging content like this weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.